Why, Adam, is Wellington such a bargain right now?
Basically because the prices are low and there's so much choice. So it's just heaven for buyers. I mean, that's the bottom line of it, right?
Welcome to the Lowdown. Back at it again with my good friend Adam, and today we're here at the beautiful Hummingbird restaurant and bar, and this place blows me away, and it's a big thank you to Nick Mills for letting us do this here, but you got to come down. It's amazing, isn't it, Adam?
I reckon you've got to check out these burnt orange couches. Orange is like my favourite colour.
Nice.
Mixed with green, beautiful.
Nice. And I noticed you've got an orange watch, don't you?
I have got an orange watch. Yes, if I'd known we were going to come here and it was going to be on an orange background, I would have worn a lot more orange.
Your orange jacket.
Yeah.
Hey, look, we've got an interesting topic today. I think we're going to talk about why Wellington real estate, particularly, is a steal in 2025. Absolute steal.
It's a steal.
And just some must-know tips for anyone who wants to get into the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we kick this off, like, why, Adam, is Wellington such a bargain right now?
I mean, gosh, you could talk a lot about why it's a bargain, but basically because the prices are low and there's so much choice. So it's just heaven for buyers. I mean, that's the bottom line of it, right?
And in terms of we've had 3 years of declining prices, but also that...
Well, have we? I mean, we had a year of really declining prices. Since latest 2022, we've been going up a bit, down a bit, bumping along the bottom, really. In the last 12 months, Wellington City has declined again, 6 or 7%. But broadly, we haven't seen prices just coming down and down and down for 3.5 years. It's been a slow market for be approaching 4 years now.
True.
But it's the first 12 months really after late 2021 where the values really just dropped. Since then, broadly sideways. Nominally, of course, on a real basis, inflation has kept going up. Other things have kept going up, so the real prices have kept coming down. I mean, real prices must be 40% down since the peak.
And that's a great point. I was keen to get you to talk a bit about that because people just people say, oh well, the market went up 30% in 2021 and then down 25. Are we really? Is it really that cheap? Is it just not still expensive?
Yeah. But what's happened to the price of 500 grams of butter? That's kept going up, but the price of a house has kept going down, has gone sideways.
Yes.
So relatively speaking, that house is cheaper.
Yes.
And everything else is more expensive.
And importantly, wages have gone up.
Yeah, that's right. So your ability to pay for the house has increased while the number of dollars of the house has gone broadly sideways.
And there are some sort of graphs out there showing the long-term trends as well, and that we are now trending below the long-term trend for house prices. So there is some statistical evidence out there that it's cheap as well as just our anecdotal.
100%. I mean, if you look at the long-term trend of house prices nationwide, then it goes above trend and then it comes below trend and then it goes above trend and then it comes below trend. It's cyclical, right? And we're definitely in the below trend now across the whole country. But even if you dig into just the Wellington market on its own, if you compare Wellington prices relative to New Zealand prices overall, compared to the long-term trend as to where Wellington normally sits relative to New Zealand, Wellington is lower compared to where it normally sits compared to the country. So New Zealand is below trend and Wellington is below the New Zealand trend.
Yeah. And then the final sort of, I guess, valuation method is to rents. In the sense that you can buy a property now on about a sort of 7.5-8% return in some circumstances,
or more. I've seen more.
Which we haven't seen those sort of yields since probably the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Like maybe 2003, 2004. I think was the last time we got to that level. Maybe.
Yeah, I can't even remember now. But
the point being,
it's
relative
high.
to incomes is high. Yeah.
Relative to 3 or 4 years ago, I mean, blue chip locations, you would have to buy a property at a lower than 5% yield.
Yeah.
And let's just explain what a yield is. Right? So by yield we mean the annual rent that you can get from the property divided by its price or divided by its value.
So if you buy investment property, you are buying those cash flows. Basically, that's what you're buying.
That's
effectively right. from a finance perspective.
This is on a gross basis. Of course, it's just the total revenue received. It's not the profit.
Yes.
It's the revenue. So if a property costs you $1 million, and you are getting, let's say, $1,500 a week in rent, that's roughly $75,000 a year. $75,000 in rental revenue divided by the purchase price of $1 million. That's a 7.5% yield. Now that's a very good yield compared to historical norms, right? And indeed, it's a good yield compared to normal properties as to what you can buy today. But anyway, the point is that overall the yields are high.
And so Adam, we've established property is cheap right now in Wellington, specifically. If you were, go back to your 20s, only a few years ago, wasn't it?
Only a few decades ago.
If you were in your 20s and you wanted to enter the real estate market, how would you think about it? What would you do?
Me personally?
Well, yeah, this is obviously advice I want to give people out there. But
So, I'm not necessarily a typical buyer, but the first property I bought was an investment property. I bought a 3-flat property. And there are various reasons why perhaps it wouldn't be quite as easy to do that again because of the lending rules and all that sort of thing. You can't borrow as much and have to have a bigger deposit for an investment property. I think if I was to do it again right now, I would buy the 6-bedroom house in Mount Cook and rent the rooms out.
Individually?
Yes, just find flatmates.
Right.
Just find flatmates.
Right.
And just collect rent off them.
Right. So that you could get a higher level of borrowing on it than if you were to rent the whole thing out.
Because I want to own a bigger property. I want a bigger stake in the market, right? Rather than buying just one that I can afford on my own. And therefore, when the market recovers again, if I own a property that's worth twice as much, I don't afford a property that's twice as expensive because my flatmates are helping me pay for it, then the exposure I've got to the capital market is twice as much.
It wouldn't be a rent-vestor, you'd be a invest-flatter.
Yes, something like that, mate, yeah. I think so, yeah, something like that, and not just a big villa in Mount Cook somewhere close to town.
Of course, Mount Cook's going to be pretty expensive. There might be people watching this going, "Well, it's all very well, but that's going to be big money." Right?
Yeah. So just somewhere close to town. Somewhere close to town. Young people, they want to be able to get into town and out of town quickly and easily. They're not worried about things like flat backyards for their kids and pets. They don't have any of those. They just have, as long as you can, somewhere to park your bike or your scooter, and a nice big room, and somewhere to have a party with your mates, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think we both agree that I remember after the GFC we had that flat period where it took, I think it was 7 or 8 years before we got back to capital gains.
Yeah.
And I remember that in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years of that, no one even was talking about real estate at all. It was just like the last thing people were interested in. Yeah. And of course, the irony of that is that's the best time.
Yes.
When no one else is interested in something,
yeah,
you want to go in boots and all
100%.
Because it's you want to do the opposite of what the crowd's doing. And
it sounds easy.
Yeah. It sounds,
but it's terrifying.
But it's terrifying. Yeah,
it's terrifying.
And as you point out wisely, that it is the credit environment. These things are often, real estate cycles are very much partly a credit cycle as well.
Yeah.
And it is harder to borrow today than it probably was, especially for investment property.
Well, 4 or 5 years ago, harder than it was 4 or 5 years ago or 8 years ago, but easier than it was 12 months ago, 24 months ago.
True. Yeah. True.
Interest rates coming down, banks relaxing the criteria a little bit. You got LVRs coming in, which is going to constrain things a bit for investors, but overall it's getting easier over the short history anyway, the recent history.
What's the deposit difference between a investment property and a home to live in?
And a normal home to live in. You know what? I'm not actually across the latest on that one, but I think is it 30% or 35% for investors now, versus ideally a 20% if you're an owner-occupier. Obviously, there are some. They have the banking speed limit, so what they call speed limits, isn't it? That a small percentage of the bank's lending can be lent to borrowers who have a smaller than 20% deposit for their own home. So you can still buy if you have less than 20%. There's not many of them. So if you take it as a broad rule, you need 20% to buy your own home. And I can't recall now whether it's 30 or 35.
So 30 or 35 is going to make buying an investment property or being a rent investor, as we've talked about on this podcast before.
Yeah.
A little harder than it used to be.
Quite a bit.
Almost double, right?
If you want to buy the $1 million property, if you buy the $1 million property to live in, you have to have a deposit of $200,000. If you're buying the $1 million property to rent out, you got to have 300, 350.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
So, yeah.
Whereas if you go and buy the 6-bedroom house in Newtown, and you're going to live in one room and rent the other 5 out, then because you're living in it, it's your home. You only need the 20% deposit.
I think you've made a great point. I'd never really thought about the big home with the flatmate situation before, and I think it's a great point because you're getting the best of both worlds in a way. You're still treating it like an investment property.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I've always found fascinating is that buying a first home, people think they're buying an asset, and when property prices go up, it is an asset. But it's also a liability, and what I mean by that is the thing that houses have problems and they depreciate, and suddenly you get sucked, and even worse, when you live in a home, you get emotional about it, and so then you make emotional decisions like I want to make this pretty, I want to landscape this.
So there's a risk that you actually, on a purely technical, logical basis, you're actually wasting money.
Well, your surplus, exactly. Your surplus funds start going into things that are just, going to give you, maybe they're going to improve your lifestyle and make you feel good, maybe at an emotional level. And that's
nothing wrong with that.
No,
but don't kid yourself by saying I'm doing this because it's improving the value of my house.
And I think, for someone in their 20s thinking about where they're going to be in their 60s, then it's really good to delay that kind of satisfaction. If you can delay that gratification of, I love my beautiful kitchen I've just spent 150 grand on, or 85 grand.
Oh, my poor heart.
Yeah, I know. So if you can kind of delay that, then it's a really good thing because you can invest money at high rates of return with little hassle, through funds, through index trackers, through buying another investment property if you have enough equity to do so. And once you've got a whole bunch of kids running around and a family, and that's the time to nest, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you can get ahead if you can do that other stuff early when it's not necessary to do the nesting.
Yeah, true. The other thing about this idea of buying the big house in a city fringe suburb and renting out the rooms and so on is that a lot of the time when people become investors, it's kind of accidental, or they go from their first home and then they buy another home and they say, well, I'm just going to keep the first home. But actually, if you look at it, it's a terrible investment. It's a 2-bedroom starter house. The cash flow on it is absolutely awful. If you were buying an investment property, you would certainly not, at least not if you're a classic investor, buy something like that. Whereas if you buy as your first home, the 6-bedroom house in Newtown, for example, like we were talking about, then when you move out of that into another home, that absolutely can be a good investment property to keep for a period of time if you want to. It actually is a good investment property.
Yeah. I agree. That's a great point. And a good way to do it often, isn't it, is leverage some equity out to go and buy something else, and then keep it as an investment. Yeah. And at that point, the 35% hurdle may not be such a big deal, 7, 8, 9, 10 years later or
that's right.
You've had time.
You've got a bunch of equity in the house.
And the property values have gone up and so on. And so if we just segue into investment property, obviously this is a area that you are pretty knowledgeable in. What would you, if you were an investor today, not thinking about LVRs and stuff like that, but if you were just looking for an optimal investment property, what would be the features of it? What would you be after?
Well, I always say that the most important things, number 1, 2, and 3, is cash flow. Basically,
that's right.
if you can buy something that has a strong cash flow, that's 95% of it.
So strong means high and sustainable, doesn't it?
High and sustainable, yes. I mean, Warren Buffett has said many things, and one of the things that stuck in my mind is I'd rather have a lumpy 15% than a smooth 10%. Okay, so that means that on average, the returns, I'd rather have a high return on average than a low, stable return.
Yes, but I think he's talking about, of course, buying operating businesses, which are, and he likes to be a value investor, so he's looking for cheap operating businesses that people might overlook the longer term cash flows of because it's lumpy. And whereas I think for an investor, do you think like risk? You've got to pay your mortgage. It's more of a levered investment. You have to pay the mortgage. So you want to, in terms of the strength of the cash flows, you really want something that's you're gonna diversity of income.
If you can have a huge cash flow and stable, then that's obviously halcyon days.
The stable part is risk management for an investor, isn't it? Because, for example, let's just say the difference between having one income stream and having 3 in the same property. You mentioned the villa that's split into 3 flats. three incomes coming in,
Yep.
you're unlikely to have all three unrented at any one time.
Obviously, that's good.
Yeah,
You
so
know?
that's one way of.
I just find that usually in the market, there's a price for everything, and so buyers are not idiots, investors are not idiots, and so when they see a property that has a more stable income, they will be willing to pay. They would be willing to buy it at a lower yield.
Well, that's interesting though, isn't it? Because when I look at the 3-flat property,
Yeah.
and that you can buy today on a 7.5% to 8% return and potentially better.
Yeah.
But yet the family home that has one income stream
Yep.
is going to be more like 5%. It's not going to stack up as an investment. So
On average, you're right, but not if we look at the number of bedrooms, for example. So if we say 3 2-bedroom flats, that's a total of 6 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. If you bought a house that was a 6-bedroom and 3-bathroom house, that really isn't appealing to the owner-occupiers. It's only really just the investors who are looking at the student rentals. That house will sell at an even higher yield than the 3 2-bedroom flats, because the investors recognise that there's more stability, more diversity in the income. It's also an easier, more stable target market. There's a broader target market. It's less seasonal. The student rentals, they peak in February or January and February, and then again in November. In the middle of winter, very hard to rent them. Whereas the 3 2-bedroom flats, it's much more stable. So you're absolutely right. The family homes have a low yield, but your student rental is not a typical family home, for example. Yeah.
And what about location and quality? You think
Location close to the services. I mean, close to the city is ideal, but if you can't get close to the city, make it close to the suburban centres, close to shops and transport links, right? And again, you just want a place that is easy to rent, and the tenants tend to want to be close to the bus stops, close to the convenience stores, obviously close to the city as well. And what was the other part of your question? Quality.
Quality. Yeah,
I mean, obviously, we've been talking about income as in the rental level, but that's not what stays in your bank account. What stays in your bank account is the rent minus the costs, which is obviously a lot to do with the price because of the mortgage interest. But you've also got rates and insurance. You can't do much about those things. What you can control a bit more of is quality, like what you're talking about, and part of quality is the construction quality. Cheap materials, like one of the things I hate is the old particle board floors. You get a leak in that, you've got to replace the whole bathroom because the floor needs to be replaced. So, good traditional materials, durable materials in decent condition. It doesn't need to be beautifully pretty, but as long as it's the roof's not caving in, the fountain doesn't need completely repiling, and the house is not slipping down a cliff. All these things will just absolutely just erode all your returns away. So as long as it's sound, is what I would say.
What do you think about the difference in tenant quality? Do people need to think about that? Like, obviously say it doesn't have to be pretty, but just in good nick. Do you find that, when you get more the professional tenants versus the student tenants, is that something you'd be looking for personally? Or
Yeah,
you don't care?
Large families, they are hard on houses. Large groups of young people who don't really yet know well how to clean the shower, trap and the drains or whatever. They're hard on houses. The best tenants is a single professional person. No children, no pets, no parties,
Yes.
no life.
Yes,
right?
Parties is a problem.
Yeah. So the ultimate would be, 1-bedroom flats that are in excellent condition. The better the condition, the better the presentation, the better tenant you're going to get. At the same time, I always think that if it's too beautiful, there's a risk that the tenant, just living in it, just general wear and tear, it degrades the level of presentation, and so keeping it up at that standard can be quite arduous. So you want something that's kind of good but not amazing. Otherwise, the finish of it is too precious, and it's just too much hard work keeping it at that level.
And you have to buy it on a lower yield.
That's right. You're never going to buy it cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So again,
your deferred maintenance might be longer on something that's really, is just being finished, isn't it? You might get that back and not having to do much for 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. So I think for your average tenant, they don't expect something that's absolutely gorgeous. They just want something clean, tidy, and it works in
I
a
agree.
convenient location.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
Yeah. It's to my original point, isn't it? That when you buy a house, that's when you start thinking about making things pretty.
Yes.
When you're renting, you don't
Yeah.
you don't care.
Yeah, it's
It's
temporary.
not yours, Yeah.
It's temporary,
Yeah.
And for the same reason, tenants don't mind houses that are a bit ugly.
Yeah.
They're
That's
not
right.
worried about that. They're not thinking, what are my mates going to think when I bring them over for dinner, because they don't own it, And it's only temporary. They're only going to be here for a year or two, and they can get the beautiful thing later. You know?
But to be clear, we want to provide high quality in terms of Healthy Homes Act. We want to be doing the right thing by tenants by having providing a product which is important for society to have, and is also clean, tidy, and livable, and actually.
Yeah, I mean, warm and dry and all those good things, right? But I'm just talking about the difference between a tenant who's living in a house and when that couple becomes an owner-occupier, all of a sudden they're going to pay a lot more attention and pay a handsome price to get into the house that's got the cute character features and the nice little garden and all that, which they really don't worry about as much when they're tenants, Yeah.
So you and I both think we're in this kind of funk in Wellington for quite a while. I mean, this it's not going to come out in a hurry. What do you think about timing? I mean, obviously you can't time the market. You can take the temperature and you can say, hey, it's cheap. But what would your advice to people be in terms of when they should get in?
I mean, I just think you should get in when the numbers add up.
Yeah.
Just get in while the numbers make sense.
In terms of your personal numbers and the numbers of the market.
That's
the
right.
Two things,
Yeah.
And so when those collide, which is, certainly the market numbers are good now. We know that. So if you've got the wherewithal to do it, you'd say do it straight away.
You and I both know that virtually no one can time the market. I mean, in an ideal world, you'd buy the property the day before everyone else starts trying to buy the property, right? And then the market, the prices go straight up. But
September 2015.
Yes, exactly. You can never predict these things. So, but what I'm confident about is that the chances that the values of Wellington real estate go down much from here is extremely slim.
Yeah.
The next big move, there'll be little bumps up and down. The next big move will be up.
Yeah.
When is it going to happen? Don't know.
And be prepared for it not to be for a number of years, right? Like when you buy, don't expect, you're not looking for, it's not a short-term game. You're not looking for a short-term.
It might happen in a year. It might happen in 3 years. We don't know. But the next big move will be up. I'm confident about that.
And this is just a question I wanted to ask you, Adam. My experience of property investors over the last 25 years has been that they are, on average, more frugal than your average person. It just seems to be a quality that the professional investors have.
I swear that property investors squeak when they walk.
Yeah, exactly. So you've experienced the same. You obviously feel the same in the same way. And, so it seems to be, obviously, if you think about investment returns, I mean, property is a low return business relative to a business or
contrary to popular belief.
Yeah, that's right. It's a low return business, and so to some degree, the way that you make your money in the long term is by controlling costs, really, really tightly. So
and by selling. That's when most people make their money. Is when they sell. On the way through, it's hard making
to build actual positive cash flows.
It's hard building cash flow that allows you to retire from your job from residential real estate. The reality is, houses eat money.
Yeah.
They do. Right. Houses eat cash.
Yeah, I agree. So do you think that that gets, is it inbuilt, ingrained investors? Are they that sort of person? Or do you think that they learn and become like that from their investment journey?
But I mean, surely both. I mean, I think to a certain degree, property investors, it's like the marshmallow test. For kids, they put a marshmallow or a couple of marshmallows in front of a toddler or something and say, look, in 5 minutes I'll come back, and if there are 2 marshmallows still there, I will give you 4. And by the 5 minutes later you come back, some of the kids have eaten the 2 marshmallows. They don't care about the 4 that's coming in 10 minutes. The ones who say, yes, I'm going to wait and I'm going to resist the urge
so I can get 4
later. That's like an investment mindset.
Yes, right? Delayed gratification.
It's delayed gratification, exactly. So some people are attracted to that naturally. Some people naturally gravitate towards it. They understand it. It resonates with them. And but I think the training of it has a huge effect also,
because they get some feedback loops.
Exactly right. And to be honest with you, I think to some property investors, they become hooked, and it's almost like a drug that they can't separate from.
I worry about that. I was going to ask you about that. I worry about that because you have to, at some point, you've got to enjoy your life.
That's right. You are constantly convincing yourself that not to take that pleasure now and keep putting it back in, keep putting it back in, keep putting it back in.
You train yourself to have more pleasure from delaying gratification than you do from the opposite.
Absolutely on the never, never. And you and I both know that you can do that forever because that property will demand cash as long as you're willing to give it to it. These properties, they do eat your cash.
It was a fascinating study, that marshmallow test. It was in New Zealand too. It's a fascinating. It's very very commonly spoken about, but it was in New Zealand.
So to answer your question, property investors frugal. Yes.
So just to wrap up, Adam, challenges now. Like if you look at the challenges that investors are facing today, that are different than in the past, what would you say those are?
I mean, I would say that today is the toughest environment I've seen for property investors since I've been investing in 28 years.
In terms of public perception, that's one thing, isn't it? I mean,
No, I just mean the reality of investing in residential real estate right now. It's harder than it's been that I've ever seen it in terms of the regulatory requirements,
True. Yes.
the expectations from tenants, the balance of supply and demand here in Wellington, especially in the rental market. There's more supply on the rental market than there's been for 10 years. And there's a bit of a hollowing out of students and workers in Wellington. So the demand from tenants is low. So it's a tough operating environment. And insurances have been going through the roof. Rates have been going through the roof. The costs have been very, very high. Regulatory requirements, very, very high. Rents softening.
And of course, this is one of the reasons why it's cheap. Some of the things you've mentioned are part
exactly
of why
right.
you've got to take a counter-cyclical and a longer-term view, is to say some of these things are going to come right.
Exactly right.
But it'll take time.
Yeah, so I can just hear people saying, well, therefore, in which case, why on earth would I be getting in now? Well, if you wait until all of those issues have been resolved,
There'll be no bargains.
Everybody else will be trying to get in too,
right.
and the price will be 20% higher or whatever the case might be. Yeah.
Great advice, Adam.
Nice one.
That was the lowdown. We'll be back at it again next week. Please like and subscribe, and thanks for tuning in.
See you next time.